Hare Krishna. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Hare Krishna. Thanks for having me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So today we're going to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 25th chapter, the glories of Lord Ananta. And the text we're focusing on is text number 8. Well, we'll give a short summary of the chapter. This text is in prose, so we're not going to chant the Sanskrit, but we'll just get right into the translation. If persons who are serious about being liberated from material life hear the glories of Lord of Anantadev from the mouth of his spiritual master in the chain of disciplic succession, and if they always meditate upon Sankarsana, the Lord enters the cores of their hearts, vanquishes all the dirty contamination of the material modes of nature, and cuts to pieces the heart knot within the heart, which has been tied tightly since time immemorial by the desire to dominate material nature through fruitive activities. Narada Muni, the son of Lord Brahma, always glorifies Anantadev in his father's assembly. There he sings blissful verses of his own composition accompanied by a stringed instrument, or a celestial singer known as Tumburu, purport by Srila Prabhupada. None of these descriptions of Lord Anantadev are imaginary. They're all transcendently blissful and full of actual knowledge. However, unless one hears them directly from a bona fide spiritual master in the line of disciplic succession, one cannot understand them. This knowledge is delivered to Narad by Lord Brahma, and the great saint Narad, along with his companion Tumburu, distributes it all over the universe. Sometimes the Supreme Personality of Godhead is described as Uttama Shloka, one who is praised by beautiful poetry. Narada composes various poems to glorify Lord Ananta, and therefore the word Sangshloka Yang Asa, praised by selected poetry, is used in this verse. The Vaishnavas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya belong to the disciplic succession stemming from Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma is the spiritual master of Narad. Narad is the spiritual master of Vyasadeva, and Vyasadeva wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam as a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. Therefore, all devotees in the Gaudiya Sampradaya accept the activities of Lord Ananta, related in Srimad Bhagavatam as authentic, and they are thus benefited by going back home, back to Godhead. The contamination in the heart of a conditioned soul is like a huge accumulation of garbage created by the three modes of material nature, especially the modes of rajas, passion, and tamas, ignorance. This contamination becomes manifest in the form of lusty desires and greed for material possessions. As confirmed herein, unless one receives transcendental knowledge in disciplic succession, there is no question of his becoming purified of this contamination. Om Ajnanatimarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanyamanovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagadhamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripadamaham Vande Sri Guru Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasundubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. I see about 12 people here. Isn't there more in your Holy Assembly of Krishna House? Okay, one more coming.
They're all spread out.
They're all?
I don't think you can see everybody, Prabhu.
Oh, okay, they're all spread out. All right, got it. So, this chapter is one of the shortest chapters in the Bhagavatam, the glories of Lord Ananta. Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadeva Goswami about the process of creation and the structure of the universe, and his spiritual master is giving him this knowledge, because Veda means knowledge. So there is nothing that is not in the purview of Vedic knowledge. Now, when you go through this verse and you're a newcomer, you will find a lot of big words that are quite new. Anantadev, Sankarshana, etc. When I came to Krishna consciousness, I was in 9th grade in my boarding school in the Swiss Alps, and I found the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the library of the school. And I was just counting all the far out words on every page. I was just really mesmerized that there's words I've never heard about. They're big words, you know? So, but I got intrigued. So later on, I just took note of all these big words, and I had 3 devotees, Gauralila, Atmatattva, and Rajavidya, who I could call any day of the week and any time of the day, and they would answer my questions. So first point of notice for you, if you come across a big word, write it down. Then either look it up or ask somebody who knows, okay? So most of these words are different names of Krishna or Vishnu, of his different incarnations. Ananta means the unlimited, the all-pervading. And Sankarshana is the one who brings together or who joins. That's why Baladev is also known, or Balaram is known as Sankarshana, because he's the one who brings together 2 families. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the purport to text number 8, he explains, what does Sankarshana do? He brings together the living entity with the objects of enjoyment. And how does he do that? Through the principle of ahankar, or false ego, or false identification. He joins them. Have you ever felt attracted to something or someone? Yes or yes? Please say yes. Thanks for your great audience participation. So, you have been attracted to something or someone because of Sankarshana. Because unless you were under the false impression that this thing is meaningful to me, or this person is meaningful or enjoyable to me, you would not feel that attraction. Have you ever wondered why there's so many cockroaches?
Yes.
Yeah? You know, the male and female cockroach really like each other and they really think they're sexy. So that's why there's so many cockroaches. Now you look at a different species, you even look at different types of humans from a different continent, and you think like, how could you ever be attracted to someone or something like that? But for them, it's just perfection. And that is all because of Sankarshana, because of the principle of false ego, of false identification with gross and subtle body. Now that's something pretty spectacular. Wouldn't you agree? How Sankarshana makes it stick. I mean, speaking of marketing, any one of you getting into marketing, or you have a mission or a project or something you like to, you know, communicate, some message you want to get across, think of Sankarshana. He does it perfectly. So, but that's not the point of today's topic. That's just a side dish. That's just the starter to get you a little bit into the topic. So the topic here really mainly is hearing in parampara. There is the ascending and the descending process. The empiric process is limited because our faculties are limited. We have imperfect senses. What else is there?
Consider the cheat.
Illusion.
Tendency to cheat, we're under illusion, and sometimes we do make mistakes, right? It can happen to the best. So, therefore, any person who tries to find out what the truth is with their imperfect senses will naturally run into these 4 problems. And any device, any machine, even supercomputer or super telescope or microscope that is produced by these imperfect senses will be flawed. Therefore, we accept the descending process, that we accept knowledge is being given that is coming down in parampara, in disciplic succession. Just like if you enter a university, there are certain axiomatic truths or certain set values or principles that have been established long time ago, and you just have to accept them. Now, hopefully, somebody can explain them to you. Hopefully, somebody can, explain the benefits. But here, the main topic of today is hearing in parampara, that unless you hear from a bona fide source, you will not get perfect knowledge. And what is the perfect source? Out of all the different ways of praman means evidence. You have shruti praman, which is the first and foremost. It is hearing from the revealed scriptures. Then you have other types of praman. Some of it is circumstantial. For instance, you're in a certain locality and you don't know your way, so you just ask somebody on the street because you think this guy is from this area, so he must know. Have you ever tried to ask for directions in Gainesville? It's quite an interesting experience, isn't it? I mean, 9 out of 10 people don't have a clue where they are or where you're supposed to be going, because no one actually comes from that town for the most part. So that just gives you an indicator of how just asking a local person or a person you think should know will not give you the actual truth. Have you ever been misled by Google? They send you in a loop, they send you in a circle, and this wheel of fortune just kept on spinning, and you just got nowhere. So Shruti Praman, or the Vedic version, is the perfect version. Why? Because it's coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the line of disciplic teachers, the disciplic succession. In the Gita, it is stated, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarsho viduhu sakaline hamata yoganashta parantapa. Krishna tells Arjuna that I have given this knowledge time and time again through the unbroken chain of teachers. And so here, the Bhagavatam, in a similar way, is expanded. This knowledge is expanded. The Gita is the ABC. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the postgraduate study. So we're studying here about the structure of the universe. And naturally, we want to know what's at the bottom of all of this. Who is holding it all up? Who is sustaining it? And that's Lord Ananta. Anantadev is massive. He's huge. He's a form of the Lord, an expansion of Vishnu, and he's holding up all the universes on his many hoods. He's a person, and he's also got a big, huge snake, a serpent with many hoods. And on these hoods, the universes are situated as clusters. That's pretty far out, isn't it? You couldn't come up with this stuff if you wanted to. If you'd write a fiction novel or, a movie script for a science fiction movie, you couldn't make up stuff that's as far out as the Bhagavatam. So either it's the absolute truth or it's completely way out there. So we accept it as the absolute truth. Why? Because we accept the source of this knowledge and we have tested it. We have personal realization and experience that this knowledge actually holds up. How many of you have had personal experience that this Vedic knowledge holds up? Show of hands, just to see whether you're alive, whether you're with us. Have you tested any of the Vedic knowledge and you find something to be true, something worked out? I mean, that's how you test things, right? You take it to the lab, you test it, you see if it works, and then you have a case study. And if you have more and more evidence, at some point you can conclude, yeah, we got ourselves a winner. We have a source that's actually accurate. But we place our faith in this because we know that this is apaurushaya. This knowledge is not coming from fallible humans, but it's actually coming from the perfect source, from the Supreme Lord, through the spiritual masters who have no other agenda but to give us this Vedic knowledge. So this was the warm-up. Now, I'd like to just share a couple of incidences that I had with some of my teachers in the last couple of months, and then we'll open up for questions, if that's okay. Today's Monday, so it's a great day. There's a lot of work ahead of us. And so I was walking on Govardhan, or around near Govardhan, from Govardhan Ashram with Burijan Prabhu, who is a long-term friend of one of my mentors, back to his place. And as we were starting to walk, he stopped and he looked at me and he said, Navina, there is something I wanted to tell you for the past 2 years. Now, any one of you wants to get into teaching, you can frame that and put that on the wall. If you want to capture the attention of a student, tell them, there's something I wanted to tell you for the past 2 years, okay? So I haven't been at Krishna House for 7 years. So this morning's little talk here is that's something that I wanted to tell you for 7 years. And I've been around a few times just extracting the essence from different teachers that I've met along the trail. And I'm happy to share it with you. So what did he tell me? Naturally, I started paying attention. He said, now is the most important time of your life. You're building your foundation. Don't be disturbed or bothered. And then he gave me a list of the things that we discussed the last time, which was a couple of years back. And he remembered of what were the issues that concerned me. And he said, don't be bothered by all this stuff. Don't worry about it. Just focus on the positive and invest in yourself. Right now is the most important time of your life. You invest in your foundation. And that's exactly what all of you are doing. Then he said, you should always ask yourself 3 questions. Now, I know some of you have photographic memory. The others, you're allowed to write it down and take notes. Question number 1, who am I? Sense of identity. And he answered it, I'm a servant of Krishna. And question number 2, who occupies the sacred space of my heart? Who is my Ishtadev? Who is my worshipful Lord? If you look into your heart right now, who is there? Is it Prabhupada? Is it your guru? Is it Radha Krishna? Or is it something else? So what occupies your heart? That's number 2. And number 3, what is your contribution to this ISKCON movement? Or for those of you who are new to this, you can also ask yourself, what's my contribution to the world? Or what's my contribution to society? What is my message? So I found that very interesting. And these sutras or short, cryptic, terse statements are something you can chew on, and it really aligns you with your identity, with your aspiration, and with your purpose, your mission. And I myself came up with a 4th one that I wanted to share with you today, and that is, what am I willing to do, or what am I willing to sacrifice in order to achieve my contribution to this movement or to society? So that's what a teacher can do. A teacher can actually help you to achieve focus, to gain clarity. And we see this in the Bhagavatam time and time again. When Vyasadeva had wrote the Vedas, he had wrote the Vedanta Sutra, which is the commentary on the Vedas. He had wrote the Mahabharata, the Upanishads. He had wrote a whole range of brilliant books, yet he was still unhappy. Have you ever done all your homework and you've done all the jobs that you were asked to do and you still felt unhappy? Did that ever happen to you? Or is it just me? And you had that Vyasadeva moment where you're like, okay, now what? I've done my job, but I'm still not feeling the love. So then his guru, Narad, showed up and said, you know what? You have written a lot of great books, but you are still happy or trying to be happy. Are you feeling happiness by identifying yourself with this gross and subtle body and giving people knowledge that's mostly related to this world? You have failed to glorify Krishna. You have failed to actually inspire people to take up the highest purpose, their highest calling. And that is the reason of your dissatisfaction. That's why we need guru. Because when you're in the hole, stop digging and look up for help. That's why self-help doesn't work. Because if you're in trouble, it's very difficult to help yourself. But you can help yourself by seeking out help from the right place. There's a lot of people who spend a lot of money trying to advertise their help. Did you ever see billboards that said injured, being in a motorcycle or in a car accident? We're gonna get those guys. We're gonna get you the money. There's a lot of people who advertise products or services or commodities or schools, etc., etc. So how to really find out a proper teacher? Again, the Vedas are giving us a very clear indication that a person who does not have any ulterior motive, they're not in it for name, fame, glory, financial, or other type of selfish purposes. And they actually know the absolute truth and they can deliver it to you. That is a proper bona fide teacher that is coming in Parampara. So Srila Prabhupada has given us these books so we have a yardstick. We actually understand the measuring. You got to have something you can measure against. If you don't have any ways of measuring, then it becomes very vague and ambiguous. So I was in San Francisco a couple of years ago, and I met a man on Market and Powell. How many of you have been to San Francisco? Okay, that's 2 out of a whole room of people. So anyhow, there is a spot in downtown. It's called Market and Powell. It's where Market and Powell meets, where the cable car goes up. How many of you have seen a picture of the San Francisco cable car? Okay, so I met a man and he looked at the book and he said, I've met this person. And I said, really? I think that's difficult because he passed away in 77. He said, no, I'm from New York. I was in the East Village, and in 67 or 66, he stepped into the storefront of 26 2nd Avenue. And the devotees told him, Swamiji's upstairs. So he went in Prabhupada's room and he said, I came into the room and Swamiji sat on his low desk and he was doing something. And I just sat down. And for 40 minutes, I just watched him. And he looked at me. And I said nothing and he said nothing. And it was perfect. Because I understood that he understood that I understood. Now that's San Francisco, okay? You get it? So, and after 40 minutes, he got up and somebody gave him some fruit and he left. This man had to wait for 50 years to get one of Prabhupada's books. Why? Because he was so full of himself, his coconut was so thick that he could not hear Prabhupada's words, even though he was sitting right in front of him. He did not have the wherewithal or the humility to ask a question or to make a sincere inquiry. So Krishna consciousness is not a zip code and it's not a t-shirt. You can write that down or get a tattoo. It is your consciousness. Where is your mind right now? Are you thinking about almond dressing? Are you thinking about your homework? Are you thinking about that dress that you want to buy? Are you thinking about all the far out projects that you want to do in life, places to go, people to meet? If you're thinking about the future, you are in the mode of passion. If you're lamenting about the past, all the things that you've lost and that you've messed up, you're in the mode of ignorance. Goodness means you live in this present moment. And that's the only thing you actually have. It's the moment, it's the present. And if you realize this moment to be precious, to be Krishna, then it becomes extraordinary. And how do we learn how to do that? By practicing our mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It's a very practical process where we learn how to focus and to concentrate on the transcendental sound vibration and to be present, to be conscious. You have to be conscious before you can be Krishna conscious. Does that make sense? Am I being understood here? It's a little hard, to do classes over Zoom because you just see a screen and a few heads. But if you're in a classroom, you can actually mess with the minds of people much better than on Zoom. So if this comes across a little flat, you can blame it on the current scenario. But you have all had the experience. You can be in a crowd and you can be lonely, or you can be alone by yourself and feel totally connected. So in a similar way, you can be in the presence of some of the most knowledgeable, realized, and benevolent teachers, but you're totally disconnected. You can really not access their information. Or you can be 10,000 miles away, but you remember something that someone told you, or you read something, and you can be fully present and feel the weight of that person's instruction. Yes, you see you got 5 bars on your phone. Okay. Yes, you see there is a Wi-Fi network, but unless you have the access code, you can't really do anything with it. So that's why, what's the first thing you ask your friend when you go to his house or his home?
What's the Wi-Fi password?
The Wi-Fi password, right? So you come to Krishna house and you want to know what's the Wi-Fi password. And what do these guys tell you? Trinadapi sunichena tarori vasahishnuna amanina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. That your entry password into the secrets, the mystery, the magic of Krishna consciousness is to let go of your pretentiousness, your false sense of self, your ahankar, your false identity. And how do you do that? By selfless service. And that's why it's so beautiful to see all of you working together as a team. I was out last Friday and I saw you guys in action. I observed you. Distributing prasadam, doing kirtan, distributing books, managing the operations. So it's beautiful to see that you are dedicating the most important part of your life. What is that?
No.
Right now. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now is the time to inquire about the nature of the self and why are we here and why am I still anxious and fearful sometimes, and what can I do in order to fulfill my objectives, and not just be moved by the Ahankar principle and try to connect with my sense objects, but what is the higher purpose? What is actually my calling? What is my mission that will truly make my life meaningful and memorable? And to figure that out, that's your homework. That's why you're here. This is the job. Everything else is the side dish. Yes, you may have 3 cars and 12 kids and 4 dogs and a few houses and a few companies. Or you may be traveling monks, or you may be artists or teachers or scientists or doctors or lawyers. That's all circumstantial. What's important is, what is your sense of self? What is in your heart? And what is your contribution to the world and to this ISKCON movement? How do you give back? And number 4, what are you ready to sacrifice? What are you ready to do to achieve this? And the first step is Tasmad gurum prapadyata jigyasa shaya uttamam. Shabde parichanishnatam. You have to inquire from a self-realized soul. And you do that by attending classes. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, you do daily classes. You also read daily. Even though you have chores and homework and school and other services, try to read at least a few verses, hopefully an hour or two of Prabhupada's books a day. And you will learn everything that's there to know. You may not be able to read all the books that are in the public library in Gainesville or in the libraries of the university. But if you read the essence of the essence, then you get the idea. And what is the essence of the essence? That's Srimad Bhagavatam. So these are some of the reflections that I have on this verse and on this chapter. I'm not going to get into the technicalities of how big is Anantadev and how many hoods does he have and how does he manage to not lose the universes and keep them up there on his hoods. And I'm not going to go into that because that's not my field. But at this point, I'd like to ask if you have any questions or reflections.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me?
I can hear you if you speak directly, closely into the mic and you project your voice.
Okay. So my question is a practical one. You're recommending we read Srila Prabhupada's books. So how do you recommend we go about that? What have you found to be the most effective means for studying Srila Prabhupada's books?
Well, there's different levels of reading, you know. There's the reading where you just say, okay, I did it. I did my pages or I did my verses. And then somebody asks you, what did you read? And you go like, I don't know, you know. I guess Krishna, you know. You know, it's like swallowing and then vomiting. And that's what happens at universities. You just cram data and then you spit it out at the opportune moment, at the right, hopefully the right moment and in the right way. But it's not digested. It doesn't really mean anything because unless you can connect the dots, it's not really gonna do you that much good. That's why we don't just study data or theory, but we have practical service, which helps us to actually internalize, to actually digest this information and gain realization. People are not interested how much you know till they know that you actually care. They want to know that you care. Unless you have empathy, unless you have compassion, unless you are able to do something for them, your knowledge will just be another burden weighing down on your head. So reading means I should try to understand what's in the text, and I should try to understand what is the author and the speaker trying to convey to me, and how can I apply this? And that means mindful reading. And then heartful, soulful reading means I try to get into the mood and I have a reverential, a service attitude. I'm really looking at this like the child is looking for the milk of its mother, you know? You ever seen a child who gets cranky because it wants to get the milk of its mother? And they start doing all kinds of things and screaming, etc. Because they know this is what I need right now. So you'll have a plan that come hell or high water, I want to read the Bhagavatam. This is top priority. This is not on the bottom of my food chain. This is my food. Pibata Bhagavatam rasamalayam muhurmuho bhuvipavuka. This is what is nourishing me. This is what is giving me sustenance. This is what is giving me meaning and purpose in life. And the rest is the rest. The rest is the bonus track. You miss a meal, no big deal, right? And it has happened. You show up, everything's gone, but you're still here. You're still smiling. But if you don't feed your mind and your heart and your intellect with Krishna conscious information, then it will go in directions and in ways that are not really beneficial for us. Food is only meaningful if you have appetite. If you don't have hunger, food is just, it can make you nauseous. So reading is only meaningful if you see a need, if you see a purpose. But initially, we know, because we're conditioned, we may not have so much taste. But taste develops through practice. In the Bhagavatam, in the first canto, second chapter, text number 16, there's a beautiful verse that I wanted to share with you. Shushru shro shradadhanasya vasudeva kata ruchi syanmahat sevayo vipro punya tirtani sevana. So, as you were asking, how should we read? Shradadhanasya. Shraddha means faith, with faith, but it also means to give one's heart. To give one's heart to the reading. So you have to lean into it. Now you may say, I only have one heart. What if I give it and I don't get it back? Well, that's a risk you have to be willing to take. So read regularly and take notes, discuss it with others, have a reading circle, and try to apply it. And then you see actually how this stuff is not just letters and words and sentences on a piece of paper, but this is actually Krishna's message to me through the Bhagavatam. Krishna svadam upagate dharma jnana dibisaha kalaunashtam drisham isha purnarko dunoditav. When Krishna left this world, all the religious principles took shelter in the Bhagavatam. So you can either lament that Krishna is gone since 5,000 years, or you can rejoice and celebrate that Krishna is present in the Bhagavatam. Just like right now, you can either be depressed and grumpy that there's a few restrictions due to the current scenario, or you can celebrate that you have gotten so much more opportunities, like, you know, all the good stuff that's happening right now because of the current situation, that you have just so many opportunities that were not there before. So what would you rather see? Would you rather see the opportunity, or would you rather see the downside, the negative aspect? So don't consider reading a chore or a waste of time or something that you do if you got nothing better to do, but consider it something that you're really looking forward every day. You make a plan for it, and you can write that down. He who fails to plan plans to fail. Greet the dawn with a plan. If you don't have a plan, it's not going to happen. It's not going to get done. So make a plan. And of course, we know that all plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. Did you get that? All plans are useless. Why are they useless? Because they always change. You always get derailed and moved to the side. But planning is indispensable because it helps you to focus on your objective, and it helps you move forward towards your goal. So figure out the best time of the day, when to chant your rounds and when to read the Bhagavatam, and you will see how your quality of life will increase by 50%. Money back guarantee from this seminar. If your quality of life does not increase by 50%, I guarantee you that. I was in 9th grade. I really didn't know that much, even though I had read quite a lot. But I never really been far because I was just 15 years old. But I started reading the Bhagavatam and the Gita out loud every day for an hour. And it was quite a transformative experience. And by that taste, that desire that I accrued through that reading, all my desires and all my wildest dreams have become fulfilled manifold, and to the point, to the extent where I could just laugh about them and move on. So I don't know if that answers your question. Other questions in the back?
Hi, Krishna. Thank you. I was just thinking about how you said we should live in the present moment, not worry about the future or lament about the past, but at the same time, we need to plan for the future. So it seems like at some point, my understanding is that while we're doing something, we should do that, focus on that, don't be distracted with one thing while we're doing another thing. But I think it's important to clarify that it's not that we should only live in the present and never think about the future.
Yes, and yes. Otherwise, you end up being at someone's birthday and you look miserable and somebody asks you what's wrong with you and you say, I'm gonna die. We all gonna die. And yes, kid, it's true. You got a point there, but not right now. Okay? So it's good to know I'm gonna die and everyone's gonna die, but the soul is eternal. And right now, we're celebrating the birthday of a friend. So live in the moment is not just a slogan, but actually it is the process of meditation that we learn how to see Krishna in every situation. And then, even at the time of death or at the time of exam, which is like a mini death, because some of your previous images and ideas had to die, you realize that Krishna is knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Matak smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Krishna is granting you knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And if I worship Krishna, he will help me to navigate through my life. But if I continuously think ahead, then it's like if you ride a bicycle. Where do you look when you ride your bicycle? Any one of you rides bicycles? Okay, where do you look?
Straight ahead.
Straight ahead. What else? Any other idea?
On the sides sometimes when you gotta make a turn.
Well, if you drive a bicycle in India, you have to look 360 degrees. Anything can come from any direction and hit you and kill you, okay? And so, yes, you got to have a 360, but at the same time, you mainly got to keep focus on the road ahead because that's where you're going and that's where it's actually happening. But still, you got to keep track of what else is going on. So there has to be balance. There has to be balance in this. Thank you. And thank you for being there and taking care of all the students at Krishna House. Other points? We got 3 minutes before you get liberated and get to take breakfast.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for class. You mentioned that that we can be surrounded by a lot of people and feel alone, or we can be alone and feel completely fulfilled. So my question is, I feel like in Krishna House we're surrounded by so many realized souls that have so many profound realizations. But my question is, how do I step away from the familiarity to then be able to take instruction or inquire from them in a serious way without...
Thank you. Thank you. Very good question. Every relationship is based on 2 qualities: respect and service attitude. And you can write that down. If you don't have these 2, you don't have a relationship. You can just walk away from it. But if you cultivate these 2 qualities, respect, that means appreciation, and service attitude, you actually do something to help others. That's why you have chores. You do cleaning, you do cooking, you do serving, you try to be helpful, and you respect others. You respect them not just theoretically, but practically. You respect them as people, as individuals, as humans, as devotees, and as parts and parcels and servants of Krishna. And because of that, you will actually gain the benefit of their realizations, which means when they say something, you will pay attention and you're able to catch it. Whereas if we're full of ourselves, like our friend from Market and Powell, you can be right in front of Prabhupada for 40 minutes and nothing sinks in because you think that you've got all the answers already figured out. I was with Bhakti Devi, the wife of Brahmatirtha Prabhu. So Bhakti Prabhu, she told me day before yesterday, something that I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to close with this. I already mentioned it yesterday in the book distribution meeting. So for those of you who were there, sorry to say the same thing again, but those who were not present, she said that Krishna is ready to give us so many pointers, so many signs and hints and instructions. But if we're not ready to hear it, then we won't be able to access it. And she gave the example of, like, I don't know how many of you have seen this, but formerly telephones, they had this big round thing where you dial, and on top there was like a receiver, you know, that was on top of it. I mean, you have seen pictures of such telephones, right? So if the receiver is not properly on the hook, then it won't ring, you know? So if our receiver is not properly situated on the hook, then we will not be able to hear the signal or to hear Krishna's calling, Krishna's message. So sometimes we work a lot on our writing, our speaking, but have you ever worked on your listening, on your hearing? So this is your homework for this week. Try to extract one grain of truth or wisdom and one molecule of inspiration from every member of Krishna House. Okay? You got that? One grain of truth or wisdom and one molecule of inspiration from every member of Krishna House. Now, everyone is a part and parcel of Krishna. And so that means Krishna can inspire us through all these different agents. So the more we're able to take on that, the more we can advance in our devotional service. And Guru is not just, it's not a personality cult. It's not about one person, but there's parampara, there's a chain of teachers. And so Srila Prabhupada is our founder Acharya. He's the one who started the ISKCON Society and wrote these books. And now there's so many teachers, and we're very grateful that we have the opportunity to be in their midst. So thank you for taking this adventure of Krishna House, this exciting project. And I'm looking forward to seeing you succeed in life, wherever it is that life will take you. Thank you for your kind attention. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Have a fantastic week. And Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Jai.
See you soon.